He loved making friends around the world, with friends, colleagues, with people he met from across the board and across all levels. And he also made family his friends, you know, and we put together some packages. Ipshita's put together family members who talk about him, friends who talk about him, colleagues from NDTV who talk about him. So first, let's take a look at what family has to say.
He was known as Anamitra to his friends and colleagues, but Jeet to his family. Anamitra means one who has no enemies, and Jeet means victory. Obviously, one who has no enemies is bound to win, and he did win in his own way. Jeet was the youngest sibling of our generation, but the first to leave us. He always had a smiling face and a very polite, pleasant, and positive attitude. This quality of his was his greatest attribute that attracted such good friends from around the world. Jeet from his young age was interested in photography, and that he made his profession in adult life. I still remember his face when I gave him the first zoom lens that I bought for him from London. He immediately started telling me about how it works. I kept nodding in order not to discourage him. Unfortunately, I didn't understand much. We definitely will miss him.
I have always thought of Jeet as a brother. Our growing up years also comprised of making up stories to our parents. And Jeet, ever the storyteller, was a sport you could count on, filling details into the often lofty lies we presented to his father. I remember those splendid birthday parties in Jeet's house. Jeet loved things like aeroplanes and trains. So birthday cakes that were made for him were often designed as an aeroplane or a choo-choo train. Jeet in his early teen years loved Tintin comics and asterisks. He also had a lovely collection of music, records, LPs that we called in those days, and later audio cassettes. A boy who participated in all family gatherings, he was happy to be around us and our large family. It is impossible to think of our large extended family without Jeet in it.
As a child, he was like any other brother, playful, naughty, teasing. But as he grew up, I remember the kind of hospitality I got once I stayed with them in Delhi. Loving, I never realized how loving he was till that day. Amongst all his other achievements, his greatest achievement is to have brought up this little boy who is an amazing child, our Togo.
I moved to Hong Kong and my sister to the US. It was during my stay in Hong Kong when I received a call that Jeet wanted to visit me and explore life's options in Hong Kong. This was many moons ago. This was also the first time we were away as young adults in a new country and clearly had lots of fun as we explored day and night life in Hong Kong.
He was a big influence for me right from day one. And all the interest I developed towards English music was due to him.
All locality friends in Kolkata. There were barely 28 houses on our street, and all of us were pretty thick as friends. Lost track with him for 15 years in the middle, between say 85 and 2000, but when I came back to Delhi, we connected. My wife, Shormila, sitting somewhere here, is also Ipshita's business partner at the Hot Pink Cake. More so, I think all of us supported each other through his illness, through his moments of happiness and his moments of, not so happy moments at that time. Okay, Jeet, I'm not going to take away too much from what's going to come up in a bit later, but he was known by many names. Anamitra, Chakla, Babai to his parents, Loga to some of us, and then I don't know, for whatever reason, he was called Mama over the past 4 or 5 years. Mama came from the fact that he seemed to know everything, predating the Google and whatever search engine worlds you have. He was an amazing storyteller. Some of it hinged on something surreal. So quip often would be Mama Dhop Merona. So, for the bongs who understand it here, I think it's something, Mama, just get back to reality. There's some anecdotal stuff behind his name being Loga. My elder brother used to be an excellent footballer, so he was Gola, which meant bullet, and he would be very good at taking a shot. And Loga was the flip, because if he would hit a shot, you would never know where the ball would land. Once it caught a maid smack on the face and she fainted flat on the road. It's different that the guy who went to get cold water to splash on her face was drinking the water and came 5 minutes later and she was still sprawled on the pavement. So that's Loga. Another here says that he was great at logarithms. He got more marks than me, but he still failed. Okay. So that's Loga. I mean, he's a concept. I mean, if you knew the man, everyone loved him. Everybody shared his love. So that's where he is. And for batting and bowling, he would always be part of a team. He had a sling action like a Lasit Malinga. The ball could come onto the stump, so it could break a window pane on the 6th floor of the neighboring house. So that was him. He was the first entrepreneur of our group of friends. When he was in class 8 and I was in class 6, so I'm 2 years younger, he was my brother's batch. He chose to open a side business of selling poultry. Okay, poultry and eggs. So our whole thing was Mama Murgi Aage na Jeet Aage. So, we just went on with that, and it was hilarious. Todu is here and with his friends, so I'm not going to talk about the full story. Catch up with your mom sometime, young boy. Okay. She asked me not to say the full story. Very worried. He had a healthy apathy to academics, but I can't really complain about that because most of us sitting here, Neil, me, we were not too great either. But he did have a apathy to academics. I don't know how such a beautiful mind who was so brilliant in technology, in camera, in the digital or the social media space, or aviation. Aviation was his first love. There's a lot of bites coming up from his pilot friends. Dhruv sitting here, Dabboos and Calbert who came up a few days back. He knew a lot of things about aviation, camera, but he never studied. So he became a superb photographer, and God bless him for that. Because he made a lot of friends over the world, and a lot, for a lot of us, you love it or leave it, and people love us or dislike us. But with him, I've just seen that, people just love him. He had this unique ability of joining the invisible dots, be it on social media or be it directly with friends, be it a person who's connected with once only, and to bring the whole piece together and be a friend. I think that's a very, very unique ability. He was a Brown Sahib. I have never bloody heard him listen to a Hindi or a Bengali song. Okay, Kono din na, never. And a lot of people talk about his music, but the youngest star he's heard is Leonard Cohen, who started in 1956 and went till 2016, but the bugger started in 1956, so he can't be too young either. And he listened to Pavarotti and Sinatra and all the works, and thought we were mere mortals listening to the Mikka and all that shit. Okay. when I again just counter-checked with Ipshita here, she said, but he did hear of Ed Sheeran, and he heard Ed Sheeran. I said, really? And she said, he's done something featuring Pavarotti last year. So that's the reason why, Ed Sheeran came into his life. Otherwise, I don't think he would have ever done it. Sorry, I'm referring to my notes. I'm not too good at public speaking. I have stage fright, but I've been asked to speak, so I'm rambling. There are some myths about him, and some myths which got perpetrated by Shruti before me. That he loved food. He loved organizing food for everyone. He never ate too much. That's why he stayed the way he did. He became fat in the middle. Rini called him fatso those days. But he organized food, and even till last week, prior to his passing, he organized some bowl of bheja for me from Old Delhi and ensured that it reached Sona Road in Gurgaon. So that was him. He had very small portions himself. He never really gorged. The same with him for his love for alcohol. He knew and spoke more about alcohol than he drank. Maybe he was spiritual, but I've been selling booze. Okay, that's what I do for a living. I sell booze. Nobody else gives me a job, not even the media. Okay, so I don't think he drank more than 2 small pegs ever in my company. And I am 2 months short of 50 years, so it can't be, too much. So these are the 2 myths about him, though, yeah, he liked sweets. So, and he had a sweet tooth, deep dived to her bakery. I think that's one reason he encouraged us so much. And his love for jalebi, stroke Bangalira calls it jilipi. Jilipi is famous. You'll hear a lot of stories about his going to CR Park at odd times of the morning or evening to find jilipi. My next point has been usurped by Shruti about the arranged marriage. You'll hear about it a bit more, but it's amazing the 2 of them really bonded over the years. And there's another story which I heard from Dabbu and Dhruv here a few days back when we met them, that Jeet had this difficulty of saying no, and towards the end, when you're late 20s, early 30s, when you're looking at women for an arranged marriage, there was this girl who he said yes to, but Dabbu and Dhruv then asked him, current laga? And he said, so they went to his dad and said that, Meshmoshay current nahi laga. So it so happened after that Ipshita Mazumdar came in from Jamshedpur and blew his fuse. Okay, so the question current laga was answered in a very different way. Okay, he had his own randy part, so that's a different part of him, so that's there. So current laga, and they converted to a song, I think later, some lyricist got hold of it. Todu, unique name. It came from the fact that Todu is a short form of tadpole. Both father and mother felt that Todu, when he was a kid, you don't need to hide, Todu, when he was a kid, looked like the first ultrasound. Okay, let's hear you.
No, it's okay. The first ultrasound.
Okay, that's what you get to hear. The first ultrasound made him look like a tadpole, so he was named Todu, which was a very bright name, I must say. And Todu lives with us happily. And Todu lovingly, but when he gets scolded, the mother and father both called him Aryaman. So we knew that something's wrong, so you better, go somewhere else. But when Todu was born, Jeet was waiting in the anteroom or antechamber, wherever when Ipshita would deliver. But being the lazy bum that he was, he took time to move there late then as well. And he was late at the delivery. The baby and the mother were back in their room when Jeet happened and said, oh, I was waiting. Though he was told maybe he was putting his perfumes. Okay. He had this amazing collection of perfumes, 32, 34 bottles still there, and they're all in the fridge. They're all in the fridge, right? Okay. This I know, I didn't check with her, I know him. I know him for a long time. Lazy. A lot of things I'm going to say nice things about him today, but he was lazy. Before his leg got amputated, unfortunately, He could reach out 1.5 feet to get a glass, but otherwise would call, Ipshu, Ipshu, can you get me a glass of water, when it was lying right there. When he didn't have a leg, that 1.5 feet became 1 feet. So Todu and Ipshu were his slaves, and whoever around him, so that, so he was lazy, pure lazy, nothing else. Bangali Bhodralok, puro, totally lazy. Stubborn as well, but more of that later. I think he was really, really lucky to meet Prannoy and Radhika Roy when he did, and his 30-year journey with New Delhi Television has been fantastic. He spoke often about NDTV with a lot of pride, and I think he lived the glory days of Indian English news television. And there's a media bite, and all his colleagues and former colleagues speak about him. And I think if there was anyone who to take pride, I think it is something fantastic that so many people speak so highly of him. And I think all of you should just see it and feel good about what your friend has done. So only that, Jeet is not with us today, but he will always be with us. That's true. And the only thing is, I think we should just continue and share his love. Thank you.
Jeet was my first friend. In fact, we were born 7 days apart, and we became friends for almost like day one. Our parents were pretty close friends, and I don't know how they planned it, but we were born in the same nursing home, just 7 days apart. Jeet is the way he would share his stories and talk about his experiences around the world. Maybe experiences at a war front, or maybe flying a plane, or drinking his favorite whiskey. But he has a story about everything. And Anamitra, this is for you. He told me how much of stability you brought into his life. And he went on to say that, he really admires you for the way you've supported him. And you supported him in everything that he did to make him successful. And I've seen you in the last 4 or 5 years as a caregiver. Not even once, in spite of what the situation was, did you let your shoulders droop. You really made it matter. The way you pulled the family together, you've been an extremely brave girl. And Aryaman, this is for your super dad, right? He's been a superhero. The superhero with the titanium leg. The superhero whose superpower was his smile.
I remember him from early classes of the C section of our school. We shared the same class right from class 1. A frail looking boy with a smile. This is the image which will stay etched in my memory throughout my life. At once I was struck by the radical change life had dealt him, and which he had embraced with so much confidence and humility. And he was in such a profession which I somehow could never have related with the frail boy I knew in school. Only Anna, as we called him, could be such a person who could leave such a huge impact in such a short time.
Remembering our dear friend Jeet, fondly known as Loga by us, the motley crew of childhood friends from Suren Tagore Road. For me, Jeet, you'll always be there amongst us with your ready wit, your Brit humor, and the who gives a damn attitude. And of course, those hilarious stories of yours. We will never forget the story you shared one day, that you flew a Boeing 737 over our para and waved us from there while we were playing cricket. But jokes apart, I don't think any other group of friends would have had as much fun as we did while growing up in Suren Tagore. You and I spent a lot of time listening to music at your place and mine, and talking about new bands that we were hearing for the first time. And I'm eternally indebted to you for introducing Little River Band to me. You gave me the album, the vinyl of Time Exposure. Thank you for everything, my friend. God bless you and keep rocking. And in the words of those 4 guys from Liverpool, in my life, I love you more.
To say something about Loga, and I'm only thinking about those few afternoons that I spent with him whenever I came down from the hills and I said, Loga, I'm in Delhi, and he would say, Chole aaya immediately. And the one memory that always rings true in my mind is when I asked him, Loga, how is it possible that you know everything? Why are you such a shobjanta? And the answer that he smiled and gave me was, because I know everything. And it was such a matter of fact answer. I think I'll never forget Loga only because of this answer. I love you wherever you are.
Generous friend with a great sense of humor, sometimes wicked. Jeet was the first one amongst us who started traveling abroad for work. So one day the rest of the guys caught hold of him and they badgered him that they wanted cigarettes, foreign cigarettes. So he kind of said, "Theek hai, next time." Soon he went somewhere and we were all waiting in bated breath for him to return. I guess some of us even dreaming of Sobranes and the Rothmans and how to flaunt it, etc. I recall Jeet walking in with a smirk on his face and a box in his hand. He got a carton of India Kings from probably Hong Kong. And the rest of the guys were like, "How could you do this to us?" And he was laughing away and said, "You guys wanted cigarettes from duty free. Here I got you one. So le pocha, what is the problem?"
There are so many stories regarding Jeet, but the one that comes to mind is when I was kidnapped from office one fine afternoon. At 2 o'clock, he calls me on a weekday and he says, "Didi, just come down." So I said, "Dada, what's happened? Is there an emergency?" He says, "Just come down. Don't ask me any questions." Just run down and he's waiting there by the car. So I said, "What happened? Is everything okay?" He said, "Nothing. Everything is just fine. You're going to have jalebi."
Hi, Chakla. You know, it sucks that you had to leave us. You were actually the very first one from Monisha's side that reached out to me and added me on Facebook. When Monisha and I were in Delhi, you really took care of us even though circumstances were not good. We had so much fun. I absolutely loved how wise yet kind you were. You'll always be my favorite. You'll always be my Prem Chopra. I'll always love you.
Chakla, cheers to you, your favorite single malt. I'm missing you. We met in 1985. Dabu and I were standing outside St. Thomas and you walked over. I still remember you walked over and said hi to us, and we became friends after that. Soon after, within a year, we were labeled bad company because you, me and Dabu got into so much of trouble all the time. Bunking class, going for swimming, going for walks in the Maidan and doing crazy stuff. Eventually, you and I met again in New Delhi and we spent about 3 or 4 years together in that apartment. I still can't figure out how and why we stayed so dirty. I remember this one time that on a Monday morning I was going to work and you were laying down on your bed. Until Wednesday morning you were still there in the same position. I still haven't figured out after 30 plus years, what were you doing for 2.5 days? Sleeping on the same bed in the same position. Well, there was another thing that I remembered about you. That one time that we were having a conversation about airplanes, and Dhruv and Dabu were flying a lot those days, and you were into photography, and you knew so much about airplanes that you almost shot those two guys up. It amazes me till the time that I knew you, and our last encounter in New Delhi with Renuma, and our talks about Bara Kebab and single malt, and of all the great things that I've always known you for and talked to you about.
His passion for aviation is unparalleled. Anytime we discussed aviation, his face will light up, and the amount of information which he had probably is more than most of us who have been engaged in aviation. And that is something which I was always in awe of about Jeet, And as we say in aviation, as we keep going through various checks every 6 months, there's a statement which we all make when a friend moves on to a different world. To fly west, my friend, is a flight we all must take for the final check.
He was unique, man of very special talents, and I know that's not news, but he was. And the thing that really caught my eye was his ability or his unique gift to be liked by people.
The strange thing was that he never actually tried to be liked by people. He didn't suck up to people. He wasn't a yes man. In fact, on the contrary, he was very much his own person. He would do things his way. And yet, everybody liked him. I've yet to see someone who had anything bad to say about him. Okay, I have to admit that there were certain teachers in school who would throw us out of class with a regularity that defies belief, but I guess we deserved that one. I shall miss him more than I can describe. I shall miss his never say die attitude. I shall miss his counsel. I shall miss our long chats over all sorts of things like food and watches and National Geographic and photography and cameras. Oh yeah, the arguments we had about cameras, that was legend.
So you heard his friends talk about his aviation days. He was actually a trained pilot. Not very many of us knew that when we were at NDTV. But the great love of his life was also photography. And he was not just an amateur photographer. His pictures were published in a National Geographic Traveler. He also featured in a book of the top 100 photographers in the world. In fact, the book is called Connections of the Human Planet. But more than anything, more than his photography really, was the connections that he made with photographers all over the world. Let's take a look.
With Anamitra around, there was never a dull moment. In fact, he called himself spiritual. Spirits were flowing freely. And it was an absolute delight to have his company, sometime with tonic water, sometime with orange juice. On a serious note, Anamitra is like one person I came across as one of the most humble person, a thorough gentleman, and always helpful, always cheerful. You'll be missed, Anamitra.
Dear Ipshita and Aryaman, I'm sorry for your loss. Farewell, bye. You have welcomed me to your family and India with warmth, generosity, love and wisdom. I'm blessed to have you as a brother and an extended family in India. You will be dearly missed. I hope you will continue to spread joy and laughter wherever you are. Rest in peace, bye.
I met Anamitra 9 years ago at a photojournalism workshop in Istanbul, Turkey. And because he, myself, and a few others were a bit older than the other participants, we generally hang out together in the evenings. And for sure, the place we'd end up at the end of those evenings was the ice cream parlor. And I could see that that was one of Anamitra's favorite delights. He was a wonderful, creative, and just kind human being, and he's going to be missed forever by all of those of us who knew him for whatever short of period of time it was.
Anamitra ji, I'm listening to Frank Sinatra and thinking of you. Anamitra ji, you're the one who introduced me to India. I just miss you and can't stop thinking of you. I love you so much. And you won't be forgotten. Your family here is our family. Lots of love to you.
My name is Henrik Kerstenskov, and I met Anamitra for the first time 10 years ago as part of the Foundry Photojournalism workshop in India. And I never really understood why a seasoned veteran like Anamitra would need me, a Dane with specific ideas about how to tell stories on the internet. Why would he need me to teach him anything? Because he knew so much already. You were a brilliant photographer, brilliant news photographer, photojournalist, my friend.
Anamitra, being with Canon as a broadcasting ambassador, he has been highly instrumental. His contribution definitely will be appreciated across. He was the man who was always ready for any level of help and guidance, of course, with this great level of experience that he was coming across for more than almost 3 decades on the behalf of Canon India team. We'll definitely miss him.
But you know, as you say in life, you remember people. You don't remember what someone says to you or someone does to you as much as you remember how they made you feel.
Many of us are privileged to have his pictures hang on our walls. As you can see, many people describe it, you know, his pictures that have motion and emotion in them. But you know, I'd like to really talk about the big love of his life, which was NDTV. That's where he spent more than half his life, and that's a love that a lot of us over here share with him. As rookie reporters, you know, at a time where there was no Google and there was no Wikipedia, he often filled us up, you know. Whenever we were on shoots, he gave us the history, the geography, the backstories, also loosely translated as gossip, which we call research. So without wasting any more time, let's have a quick look of what some of his colleagues have to say.
Dearest Ipshita, Radhika and I are really, really very sorry that we can't be with you and all of you at this time, at this important moment to celebrate Anamitra's life. I can't tell you how much I loved that boy. I knew him for so many years, and he just got better and better. In fact, from inspiration became admiration. I just still remember him the last time I saw him sitting on the sofa across from me in a little room in Archana. He'd been through so much and he was so positive. He was smiling. He was looking at new things to do, pushing himself. I mean, I just looked at him and I thought, man, what a great human being. Anamitra was a really, really special person. Always happy. And I can tell you, it's not just me who said that. I've asked so many people. Everybody loved Anamitra.
I remember my old friend and colleague Anamitra Chakladar with great warmth. It was a wonderful period in Indian television when we were all part of NDTV, and one of the reasons it was one of the best periods of my life as a professional was because of the friendship with my video journalists, and Anamitra was one of them. The thing that always stood out to me about Anamitra, Chakla as we called him, was his he was always smiling and he talked a lot. So he was never short of a word or two. I never saw him depressed. He was always full of energy, fun, and the odd joke or smile. Even when we were covering the attack on Parliament that fateful day in December 2001, and bullets were ringing around, and I think one went through his camera lens, Anamitra was smiling. He was courageous, and I thought he showed right through his career a sense of being a true professional. I don't think he ever said no. And it's just that, you know, those were the days that I think there was this special relationship between the reporter and the camera person.
You can see the 3 militants trying to enter through gate 12. This is the first one who fires over the wall It was a bullet from his gun that hits my camera lens cap. Second man you see changes his jacket and pulls out a gun. As the third man comes around the van firing. The first terrorist came towards us with his guns blazing. Fortunately, he missed me but got my camera. My colleague who was standing next to me was not so lucky.
I will miss him, and I'm sure wherever he is, he's smiling and cracking a joke. It's that ever-smiling spirit that defined the man. To Ipshita and the family, my deep condolences. Anamitra will always be with us.
So many memories of so many different shoots with Anamitra that it's almost tough to pick, but I just want to take one particular example which sort of also underlined the sort of a person he was, with that completely unflappable nature and that smile which was always on his face. I think I'm looking back to 1995, which was Charade Sharif in Srinagar at that time. And that was perhaps the first time Anamitra had ever been to Kashmir. And it was at the last minute. We got a call in the morning at 10:30, 11, I think Pranoy called, or maybe even earlier, and saying they burned down Charade Sharif, get to the airport, sort of a thing, and it was 1 hour to go. Anamitra has probably woken up and said, go, we have to go to Kashmir. He'd never been there before. Fly inside, get into a chopper, go straight to Charade Sharif, and he sort of landed there. Anamitra looking around and saying everything had been burnt down, all those guns were there, taking shots. And I was just always struck by the fact that how normal he seemed to find this. It was abnormal even for someone who'd been to Kashmir before like me, but he was completely unflappable, big smile on his face, filming everything that was happening, pointing to guns that were lying around there, and getting the right cutaways. And then we went back to Srinagar. The chopper wasn't there. We had to hitch a ride literally in an army bus, which he was absolutely fine with. And then when we get there, I said, let's try and go and find where Yasin Malik is, and he's in Hazrat Bal. Smile on his face, yeah, sure, let's go. And we reach out there, and there's absolutely crazy stone throwing that is taking place. And, I told Anamitra, we got to go across that square, just try and avoid being hit by the stones as we cross that to try and get to where Yasin Malik is. And I'm never going to forget the sight of it. So he's walking there. You would have been expecting him to worry a little bit about his head, but he had this sort of camera like this so that it wouldn't get smashed. And then we went across there and went inside and met Yasin Malik. But when I'm looking at this picture which was there, this memorial, and that smile on his face, I'll never forget that smile on his face all the way through. Charade Sharif, army bus, while the stones were coming, and then sitting inside Hazrat Bal and having a chat with Yasin Malik as if it was the most normal thing to do. Anamitra, we're all going to miss you.
Anamitra was very, very close to me. He was one of my close buddies when I was with NDTV, and I had some great memories with him. When we went to cover the Mother Teresa, funeral in Kolkata, I still remember he was doing a piece to camera with me, for which I took about maybe 10 takes, and I remember Anamitra doing reverse walking for about 5 to 10 minutes while shooting that. He was so talkative. When we used to land for shoots, the first thing that he would do was talk to the cab driver, and they were completely crazy, insane conversations on everything, but he would just strike a rapport immediately with anyone, and he was thoroughly provocative all the time. We had some great moments covering Parliament, going around for shoots. At that time, along with Narendra Gudavali and Dhanpal, Anamitra was one of my, constant choices. If I ever had a choice with the production controllers on who to send come with me for shoots, it would be Anamitra, because it was just absolutely great fun. Lot of love for life, loved food, and I'm just completely shocked that he went away so early. But Anamitra, wherever you are, I remember you. I remember your smile. I remember the great moments that we had together. I'll miss you, my friend.
He was a great survivor and a very happy person. There is one sign-off I always loved to do on my stories, which was with camera person Anamitra Chakladhar, Pallav Bagla for NDTV. With camera person Anamitra Chakladhar in Switzerland, Pallav Bagla for NDTV. Albert Einstein never got a Nobel Prize for this particular formula, even though he discovered it here. In Bern, with camera person Anamitra Chakladhar, Pallav Bagla for NDTV.
We first began our association years ago in the middle of the night, being called and sent off to Nepal because the entire royal family had been massacred. There we were in the thick of things, battling riot police, stone pelting rioters. And then of course, the Hartal struck streets of Dhaka, where we decided we would get onto those cycle rickshaws with all our equipment, 2 of them that is, separately, as we made it to the Foreign Office to get that exclusive interview with the Foreign Secretary, with the secret police chasing us. In fact, Anamitra got so upset that he got off the rickshaws when we got to the Indian Embassy and walked up to the secret police and in Bengali gave them a dressing down to say, leave us alone and let us do our job. Cut to much later when we were in our last assignment in Nepal for almost 45 days. By then, Anamitra had wisened up. He asked the camera department for protective gear, helmet, and also bulletproof vest. So there we were, back in the thick of things, battling the anti-monarchy protests, where we had the protesters on this one side, the lathi-wielding police on the other, tear gas, rubber bullets, everything, and we were reporting the story right there from ground zero. So here's one shot that Anamitra shot of me, and then here's one in the field. And that really was Anamitra. He gave you that ability to do your job, to shine, and he did it while always having your back.
Anamitra, thank you for helping out a rookie reporter. 1998, the pre-Google era, clueless me, and then Anamitra at a press conference would tell me, that's the Commerce Secretary, that's the Minister of State, this guy speaks well, so go to him after the press conference. You know, half the time, actually most of the time, I couldn't get into the finance ministry. I just couldn't make it past the reception. But when Anamitra was with me, somehow I looked more serious. People took me more seriously. And all the time, cool and calm. Even when we were on our way back from Tokyo, our plane loses a bit of its wing, Mr. Cool and Calm. I think we always cherish those people who help us when we're down. And Anamitra, for that, I'm always, always grateful to you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, Anamitra and I have a whole lot of stories. We have covered stories in so many places for so many years. But it's one of my first stories with him. I think my first time that I went outstation with him that actually comes to mind. Those were the days when there were infinite budgets. And NDTV had a deal with the Taj chain of hotels. So if we traveled and there was a Taj hotel, we used to stay in the Taj hotel. And this was a story for Star News Sunday. Anamitra and I went to Calcutta city, both of us know very well. And we were to stay in the Taj Bengal. Those were truly the days. Now, Kolkata is also home for me, so I had my grandparents' home as well, but there was always this option of staying in this new, fancy, extravagant hotel. And so I thought, you know, maybe I'll spend some time here and then the next day I'll go to my home. So I went into the Taj and there was this wonderful woman, a Taj executive, who made a beeline for Anamitra, and here I am thinking, why would she do that? I mean, anyhow, she did, and she chatted him up, and she kept talking to him, and I realized that they may actually be something more than a conversation between a Taj professional and an NDTV camera person. There may be something more there. So Anyhow, I went into the room, we all went into the room, we sat around, we discussed the shoot and things like that, and this Taj executive wouldn't leave. And I thought to myself, right, I think there's enough I've seen over here, and perhaps I need to move away. Now that Taj executive turned out to be Ipshita, who over the years has been a friend, a co-worker, and of course Anamitra's wife. The two of them made a fantastic couple, and it was wonderful to see them in this relationship before they actually got married.
During my time on Good Morning India, I always looked forward to Anamitra coming home for the shoots. Besides being brilliant behind the lens, he knew so much about food. He had a great palate to match, and we always had good times. Thank you, Anamitra. Thank you for the memories. It's been an honor to know you.
My first memory of Chakla is from 2003, where he was a camera person assigned to me as a producer, and we traveled with the OB van across the length and breadth of Rajasthan to cover the elections. And Chakla, in his charming way, would con me into setting up for the OB every single time, which was pulling out the heavy cable, lugging that heavy tripod and that horrendously heavy ikigami, and setting up for not only day shoots but our night programs. I would crib about the heat. I would crib about why he would make me carry all this heavy equipment. But he taught me how to love my work. He taught me how to love every angle that the camera would take out, and how you could use the camera and get it to speak the way you wanted it to speak. Even after our really long, hot, horrendously tiring days, when we reached a new location or when we had the little bit of time that we did, he would be ready with his camera in hand and saying, "Chal producer, let's go take a look at the sights and sounds." And me, I'm completely tired and knackered, I would say, nahi jana mujhe. And he would sit me down and he told me one day, he says, "You never know what life throws up at you. And you never know if you will have the chance to have this experience again. So make the best of it and make the most of it, and squeeze out every bit of joy that you can from what you have in front of you." And from what he said in 2003, he lived by that even through his illness. He enjoyed every moment of health and happiness that he could. He savored every moment. He was always very positive. I don't think they make people like that anymore.
He was erudite in a way not many camera persons are, with a wide span of reading, of information, of knowledge, of experiences which he'd share with anybody. Never holding on, giving it out, sharing it. He would talk of chromatic aberrations in Ansel Adams and the politics of the world and music, yes. He'd talk of shutter speeds and Sinatra in the same breath. Being in the Parliament and the Congress and the BJP beat, where in between those spaces where we'd not be working, we'd have those long conversations about this and that and that and this and cabbages and kings. Those recent difficult years which he bore so stoically and with such dignity, never letting his good humor go, never letting it affect him, never letting his pain show. It would have been difficult. It was all born with great dignity and with a smile. I'd put up a recent picture of a sunset on the Brahmaputra just a few days back, and he responded with a high five to that. This was just a day before he passed away, before he left us. And that high five, that upbeat note was what he was. Always upbeat, always looking positive and bright, and always spreading some light around him wherever he went. Literally as well, being a camera person. But that's what he was, and all I would say is that high five to you, Chakla.
एक दुखद सूचना आपके साथ साझा करनी है। हम सब के बड़े अजीज कैमरामैन दोस्त अनामित्रा चकलाधर, जो हम लोग के साथ जिंदगी भर कैमरे को लेकर इस पत्रकारिता के जीवन में यात्राएं करते रहें, अब हमारे बीच नहीं हैं।
Anamitra was my first friend at NDTV. 24 years ago, he was the first person who actually came into the room I'd been assigned and spoke to me. And we've been really good friends since then. Many of us knew him for his friendliness, his warmth. A lot of us knew him for the tall stories he used to tell and the procrastination. But very few of us knew him for the good-natured, lazy stubbornness that he had. I say good-natured because he never actually said, "I will not do it." But there was always a reason for it not happening or it not being done. For some weeks, I had been discussing his blood test results with him. And I was therefore very surprised to get an urgent plea from his father through Ipshita saying, "Will you please take him for a blood test? It's 2 months overdue." And there I had been sitting and discussing all these results with him. Well, I picked up the phone and he answered it in a very laconic, "Hello." Furiously, and with the choicest of abuse, I told him to get his effing butt off the bloody bed, into his effing pants, and that I was coming to pick him up. And I slammed the phone down. Ipshita later on told me he put the phone down, quietly got up and dressed, and was waiting at the door for me. Well, it was just one of the many times that I had to make him do something, fortunately not with the same language, because I think he only did it because he was so shocked. And I was so surprised that I actually use those words because they're not really a part of what I say. I'm sure all of us will never forget Anamitra and will always keep a place in my heart. And as we near the end of the celebration, on behalf of Ipshita and Aryaman, she has requested me to thank you all for taking the time and the trouble to be here this evening and join them in the celebration of his life. A special thank you to his dear friends who have flown in from across the country and who have come in from abroad. They're too numerous to name. Many of them became family. Those of you that he mentored and the strangers that he helped. Aryaman's teachers and his classmates who supported him through the 5 to 6 years of his father's illness. Ipshita's clients, many of whom never even met Anamitra. And finally, his family at NDTV. Dr. and Mrs. Roy always had a very special place in Anamitra's heart. And I know they will always have a place in Ipshita's. His colleagues from every department, former and current, a very, very special thank you for letting Aryaman see what a wonderful and talented man he was. Everyone has been an incredible source of comfort and support to Ipshita, Aryaman, and Anamitra through their lives, through their ups and downs. He loved music. And we'd like to end this evening on a musical note. First, a song by a good friend, Neil, who has written, composed, and will sing it. And lastly, a number that tells us the man Anamitra was and the life he loved and lived.
I think a lot's been said. When I came to Delhi in 1996, I came with knowing Loga from the Para as somebody who's hilarious, who's got stories, and who would offer one Jaisalmer cigarette when you asked for it in Calcutta. So when I came here and I met him in his house on the top floor of C82, it was on a Sunday morning. He was cooking mutton, and it was with butter. And he actually asked me to have lunch, and I had. Much to say that going forward, when I stayed alone, it was one of those things that really inspired me to stay alone in Delhi, to move into a house, get into cooking, of course. And then Loga, in time, became Jidda, sort of a brother, guide, and always there to help. Knowing him as Loga and Jeet, and what I saw today, the Anamitra actually, the professional Anamitra, has really sprung up. So here's to the three men I admire most, Loga, Jeet, and Anamitra. Cigarettes and bottles of beer, sunset on C82, you and the barbecue burning, it was burning right through. I remember the fire not lighting, not willing to light. And through the cold evening, you didn't give up the fight. I'm sorry for the past few years, couldn't make it to here. If only those days could turn back to where it was. How your laughter rings around us, the things you said, where misery and pity have no place instead. Your jokes and the flights of fancy, stories from the heart, stories that touch the crazy and out of this world. Remember the wheels spinning out of the cart, and what the general's garden, this everybody will remember, most of them. It got up from the bar. Cigarettes and a bottle of beer, these lines that I wrote for you. If only the days could turn back, another sunset on C82. Thanks.